What's good, my fellow peasants? Let's jump right into it. Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition, the latest in a long line of Square making FF15 that clingy obsessed chick that keeps glamming herself and then coming back and asking, do you like me yet? Royal Edition was an interesting addition though, tweaking the ending of 15 into, with no other way to put it, an actual end Final Fantasy dungeon. Long, explorable, some supernatural trippiness, and lots of thrilling boss fights. They were dope. The not so good though is the story remaining kind of a sugar coating layer of thin. Sure, it's sweet, but you never want too much cake, baby. But that's where I'm gonna start. That's where I'm gonna dive in this video. The story, my pezzers. Instead of an actual review, which I might do later, mostly where I'll probably be harping on about how freaking awesome that summons Stella and this chick, helping to bring down the tower barrier Ardyn used to burn Noctis with. And what a burn it was. Ardyn, you arsehole. But let's go to Ardyn's role in this DLC, and specifically what I want to delve into is the relationship between Ardyn and the Mystic King. So we quickly learn from another quest of promptography that the founder king of Lucis, the one we recently but kinda always known was Ardyn's brother, that his name was Somnus Lucis Calum. What? Wait, it shouldn't it be Izunia? Now this is where it gets a bit weird, because we've always known that really the entire center, the crux of this game, it pretty much revolves around the betrayal that was done to Ardyn.
But a jealous king, one chosen by the crystal, ostracized and demonized this healer of the people.
Wrote him out of the pages of history, completely erased his existence, and that's what makes this relationship actually perhaps one of the most important in this game. Yeah, it's the one we know least about. I know with the name Somnus, I certainly could not have been the only one who was surprised. A lot of us believed it to be Izunia, and we had good reason to. When Ardyn first revealed his identity, he was telling Noctis about the bro that betrayed him, followed by, you'll never guess who Izunia's name was. Well, I expect in the context of what you were saying at that point, Ardyn, it was the dude who betrayed you, right? So which is it? Somnus or Izunia? Well, let's focus on the latter, and I think there are 4 possible solutions that I can think of. So number 1, Izunia is Ardyn's oracle. I've heard this in the past, that some believe Izunia to be a female name. In fact, I'm pretty much sure someone sent me over an etymology. Can they find it? It was ages ago. But I've heard some people say it's female, and I quite like this idea if it is. Ardyn did have an oracle, as I'm sure the Founder King did. And maybe for all we know, they had the same oracle. What we also know was Ardyn killed her, adopting Izunia's name. If that was the oracle he killed, would be pretty cool, because it would symbolize Ardyn's embodiment of his darkness, his acceptance, and almost reveling in his fall from grace. The second idea is, this one's definitely the weakest, but again, running with it being a female name, could it just be his mother's? I mean, she would likely have been Somnus's as well, so both kings, and I always thought this mysterious red-headed figure here, this was so central on the Amano Big Bang artwork, that maybe she could have been Mother Calum, but that is a bit stretching. Moving on to number 3. And this is by far the one I most prefer, that Somnus is still Izunia. Now go with me on this. If the Founder King really is the one responsible for the 1,000 years of misery and despair on Eos, that he stole the throne before the crystal had chosen him, and he'd gone back to erase Ardyn from history, what does any illegitimate king, what does he have to do? He has to rewrite history. He has to rebrand and legitimize his bloodline claim, disassociate from being a usurper, and could that not explain the name change? The name that he was brothers to Ardyn with. Because that's the thing, if he's gonna betray a brother, a bro, you know, you don't really give a shit if a nobody betrays you, but maybe Izunia not only changed his name to Somnus when he became a king, when he was reborn a king, but also maybe as a way to wash away his guilt of it, disassociate from the name he knew, his brother knew him as. And you can kind of see that in Royal Edition, when we actually fight him, he asks, can you free my brother? Implying maybe there is some leftover guilt there. And this name change would make a lot of cool symbolic sense. Think about it, the name Somnus means sleep personified, the god of sleep in Roman and the Greek equivalent of Hypnos, the son of night and brother of death itself. That's pretty cool. It would also work because when you think about it, the 113 Lucis ancestors, they aren't the good guys. Somnus took what wasn't rightfully his, and in doing so, he threw the world basically into a nightmare, a line of sleepless immortals, hypnotized by their own power, and in keeping it for themselves, they plunged the world into a permanent night, aka sleep. And I kind of think that was what Ravus was there and supposed to represent, and he kind of did in Kingsglaive, but the plotline fell off. He was there to show that the Lucis family was using the last crystal to cushion their own lives while the outside world burned.
All the refugees, it's our new home.
The Empire, you went in with Niflheim.
You're the hero of our revolution, brother.
Lucis killed Crow. There's no peace to be had from throwing the weak to the wolves.
The Lucis household represents something bad in the world. They represent death. They represent the world out of balance. Almost in a hypnotic sleep, so changing his birth name from Izunia to Somnus at the point of being crowned would be such an awesome mirror of that also being the moment where the world was put into sleep at the expense of his line being sleepless, aka Insomnia, the city he is founder of. And I could definitely see why they ran with the name Somnus. It would also be, when you think about it, quite the burn on Ardyn's behalf. By incorporating his brother's real name into his own, it would be like Ardyn was voicing an eternal rejection of his king name, Somnus, and basically rubbing his nose in the illegitimacy. You get what I'm saying? Yada yada. Brutal. And the fourth one, so I'm going to present, maybe that Somnus is Izunia, but it's not in name directly, but in what Izunia actually means. So this is pretty funny, but Izunia in Japanese translates to Little Weasel. Or Least Weasel, if you want to be exact. Ardyn switching out the Lucis Calum in his name for something that means Little Weasel, that would be like calling Somnus, or maybe even the whole family, Little Weasel. Rodents who are cunning, deceptive, traitorous, not the rightful heirs. Another way this could be just a play on definition as opposed to something literal is if we look at Yzma's name in Japanese. It's Izunia. That's pretty close to Izunia, right? Could be a complete coincidence, but if you muse on it, who is Yzma? Yzma is a woman who betrayed a magically gifted sibling, casted them out into the wild where their name was forgotten, their existence, all the while they went on to attain a high position of power and authority. Now, where have you heard that before? There is a shite load of parallels between these two relationships, and the names aren't far off either, so these are my speculations, and I do feel mixed about it. On the one hand, I do agree with someone like community member Asher Chung, who made this amazing post. I'm perplexed and disappointed with how much Square are beating around the bush on revealing these plot elements. I agree with that. The Lucis, the Florets, the Ardyn family histories is such a rich, intriguing backstory with an infinite amount of juicy potential. But the fact that once again we're having more questions answered with more questions, critical plot elements kind of being dismissed, diminished, it's such a momentum killer, especially with how spaced apart these DLCs are. But on the flip side, I'm gonna say the Royal Edition, it left no confusion or doubt in my mind that I am still, despite being over a year out, still really intrigued and just curious about this story. Because when you finally do get around to telling the story Square, my butt is clenched, my body is peppered, and I'm yours for the taking. But whereas we're thirsty for a big pint of storylicious and lore goodness, more often than not you only serve us a pipette. But maybe, guys, maybe that's just how it's always going to be. A face value presented experience. Now, simplistically presented, like Tabitha said, that doesn't really lend to any of this deeper, hidden or intricate meanings. But on the other hand, maybe we are just being too impatient. I know saying that over a year later, since the game's release seems absolutely ludicrous, but with an episode Ardyn confirmed as being the first DLC we will be getting in the next wave, 2019, maybe this was all just a tee up. Maybe the name is Izunia and the nature of this brotherly betrayal, maybe it will all be unveiled, giving perfect clarity and context to everything. Or it could all just be bonus point number 5, Square are smoking way too much weed at the office.
Kupo.